Okay, yeah, so today we're going to be talking about more of like life and what other philosophers have thought about life, and more of what I just kind of think about, like what the whole entire meaning of life is. And Socrates put this in a very simple of terms and everything. He basically sat there and said, meaning comes from questioning everything and knowing yourself, challenge belief and seek truth. Now, the whole entire thing though behind Socrates at this time was he was kind of living in a time where religion and stuff was kind of like in a massive shift, and like politics and everything, and people began to question stuff more at this time. Which I know this was still ancient Greece, but even in ancient Greece, there was like some major stuff happening in Athens and stuff at certain parts of history, which I'm pretty sure Socrates was actually in that point of history of like where there was like massive god changes and stuff inside the city of Athens, and like these people just started worshiping all these just kind of random gods that had like no meaning to the Greek culture at this time. And that was the whole thing behind Socrates was he began to kind of probably sit there and look at this stuff. And once again, I could be completely wrong here. I don't know if he actually lived at this time. It was either him or Plato, or maybe it was Aristotle. It was like one of those three. I lived at one of these times. But my whole thing though behind it is he was probably sitting there questioning it. And into those questions, you kind of figure out more about yourself because you questioned yourself. You didn't just sit there and let it, happen and everything like that. You kind of, just if you ask questions, you'll figure out more instead of just sitting there and listening always. Yes, it is good to listen to whenever people answer the questions and stuff, but there's a saying: a loud mouth will never learn anything, and open ears will always, or something like that, right? And the whole thing behind it is that is true to a certain extent, because if nobody's talking and nobody's asking questions or anything, you'll never learn anything. But now I'm going to get more into what like Plato thought and everything. And his core idea was the world around us is imperfect. Real meaning is in high ideas. So life purpose is basically understanding justice, goodness, and truth, and becoming the best version of your soul. But to me, I wouldn't really say becoming the best version of your soul. It'd be more than likely nowadays phrased as the best person, like the best person you could be. In the sense of being kind to everybody, in the sense of being like the most just. And the whole thing though behind that one is I have to sit there and disagree with Plato because, for example, just is more of a moral thing. Right, like what you believe should happen to someone for, like, let's say, speeding or something, is more of a personal opinion rather than more of like a universal thing. Like, obviously, they should get a speeding ticket, but in some countries, that is probably not the case in this day and age, because once again, to them, what justice is completely different than what justice is over here, and because of that, it just kind of brings in this whole entire issue with that, which I believe that you should try to become the best, most just and everything of yourself, of what your culture sees fit. But that's the whole thing behind it is like what my culture sees fit might not see fit in France, because I'm from the United States. Like, for example, I think like Americans leaning on stuff. That's a very like weird thing over there, and technically wouldn't be like a just goodness or truth thing, but it's once again a difference in culture there that could, with that, it's just a slight difference in culture that could just mean like a law over there would be seen as unjust over here, but over there it's justice. That's just how justice is. Aristotle also has a very interesting sense of life. Meaning comes from balance, virtue, and living with purpose. Life is doing good constantly, not just feeling good. Basically, the whole idea behind this one is like you should be living a flourishing life. You should kind of be, helping out others, getting more friends and getting more relationships and everything else like that. And I do agree with Aristotle here, because Aristotle is a very smart man whenever it comes down to talking about relationships and even friendships. Because I made a video yesterday talking about the 3 things of friendships, which was actually talked about by Aristotle. So him sitting there and saying that you should live in a good, balanced, virtue way is a very intelligent thing to say, but he's not saying that you should live that way with the trust of everybody. Because if you kind of look at it, you kind of have to understand where these people sit in your life to truly understand on how much you can talk to them about certain stuff and everything. And once again, Aristotle, though, is talking about if you do good in your life, not just because it makes you feel good, but because you are just doing good, even if it hurts you to do good. Even if it, like, pains you to do good. Not in the sense of, like, physical pain, but, like, you might be late to something because you helped an old lady cross the street, or helped an old man bring his groceries into his house, or whatever, right? He is trying to sit there and say that just because you're being hurt by it, just because you might be late for something, you should still do good, not because you're going to get the feeling of good, but because it's actually truly good. And that is what true moral belief is doing kind of good and stuff like that. And these are more of kind of like, I feel like, your ancient Greek philosophers, moreover. And I'm going to kind of come back to like more of like, your modern day philosophers in just a minute. Okay, so now we're kind of getting more into, like going into modern day, but also still kind of same with like older, more old philosophers. And our first one is we got Eupricus, or however you say his name. I'm very sorry, I probably just mispronounced that shit out of that. But his whole entire idea was to avoid pain, seek peace, and enjoy friendship. Life doesn't need to be a big or dramatic to be meaningful. And that is a true thing, but I truly believe that if you only seek pleasure and peace and all that other stuff and never seek any type of challenge or pain or stuff that will kind of just throw you through the mud, because that's the thing about humans is being thrown through the mud, you will still come back up and still kind of come swinging and everything. And it is true that you should seek out these enjoyable friendships, and you should seek out peace and stuff, but you should also seek out pain in certain areas, because in certain areas you have to grow. Like, for example, if you go to the gym every single day and you say, I'm going to work out, but the moment I feel any discomfort in my muscle at all, I'm going to quit. You will more than likely not very much grow, if you'll grow at all. It's a very unlikely chance that you'll even grow. That's my whole thing behind it is like, that's the certain stuff that like I'm talking about, is to avoid pain completely. It will stop complete growth, but to constantly be in pain, you'll never have an enjoyable life. Now we're more getting into now like stoicism and stuff here, and that's where I'm about to go with this. Which stoicism was kind of made by a lot of people, and a lot of people just kind of contributed to the idea over time and everything, and it wasn't really one just person's idea. And stoicism is more the idea that you should be okay with the situation that is in front of you, kind of like, and you should, because you don't have control of it. You have no control over the situation in front of you, so you should be happy. And the whole entire kind of meaning of life that comes from that is to have inner strength, discipline, and staying calm, and then just having control over the brain and how your brain actually does work, and accepting the hardships with, great valiance, I guess. Like, I don't really know how else to say it. Like, great, like, fearlessness, courage, and all this other stuff. You should take it as what it is, and take it as a lesson, kind of. It shouldn't be like something that is like a growing pain or anything. You should honestly be happy at the fact that it's coming to you to challenge you and not, anybody else type deal. And this is also kind of coming and back into the idea that, you should, what is it, where is it, where's all my notes, it's on my notes, oh yeah, okay, yeah, it kind of goes back to Socrates, because in Socrates, like, he believed that you should ask questions about everything. That is kind of not very much as true as stoicism. You should question what is happening in front of you, but into questioning it, you shouldn't be upset or angry at the fact of what is happening in front of you. You should accept it with your inner strength and discipline that you have built over a lifetime and everything. And now Friedrich Nietzsche is a very, very interesting philosopher, and I kind of like some of his philosophy. But he is quoted with saying, God is dead. And this is basically to put in a more of a understanding of what we're talking about today. There's really no universal meaning. You must kind of build it out of your own purpose. Put it in kind of like, I guess, build it out of like what you enjoy. Like for example, in my life, I don't really ever have a plan of exactly settling down and getting a 9 to 5 or anything like that. I kind of plan on walking throughout this world and either one, starving to death, probably dying of like hypothermia or something. But out of that, I'll have built my own purpose and my own meaning from it. And I'll be happy with whatever happens because I got to see parts of the world that I wanted to see into doing this and stuff like that. And moreover, Friedrich Nietzsche is also kind of like more of like you should push yourself to grow and like overcome weakness, and that even comes into that's probably where I was trying to go with this more. That's kind of intertwines with Stoicism because Stoicism and Friedrich Nietzsche's is kind of go hand to hand in the sense of like you should accept everything that's happening in front of you, but into that you should also push yourself to grow because of that and become stronger and constantly use your life to constantly strengthen your inner discipline and everything else like that. But he's more talking about this. We're once again talking about more life and everything. And that is something that he does talk about that is kind of sort of the meaning of life is that you need to push yourself, overcome weakness, and become stronger. But also at the fact that you need to build your own purpose. There's nobody out in this world that's actually going to give you truly purpose in this life but yourself. And if you can't give yourself purpose, then your life is just going to have no meaning to it. And a lot of people will sit there and say, like, oh, well, work is my purpose. Work isn't really a purpose to be alive. Work is more just a way of being alive, not really a purpose of being alive. And now we're going into Albert Camus, and he was more the maker of absurdicism and existentialism, which is basically life is meaningless, but that is okay. And the whole thing behind that is that's not exactly what that philosophy means. The world doesn't give you any meaning, so you should create it. And once again, this kind of ties back in with Friedrich Nietzsche's, but not in the sense of, such a rebellion against like everything and kind of like not wanting to, be crazy and everything. This is more of like that's what this philosophy is doing stuff that is completely absurd and stuff, but just because of the fact that you're kind of alive and stuff and living your life in a way that is basically life is basically meaningless to you, but you're making meaning from it, from that meaninglessness. Because like for example, you wouldn't ever go out and do some of the stupid stuff that you might do if you think life has no meaning, but into doing that you're kind of building meaning because you're making memories and stuff like that. And that is the whole entire point of like life and everything, is to build meanings and everything and stuff like that. But I'm gonna get more into like some more like religions and stuff in a second, so we will be back in just a minute. Okay, so now we're getting more into like Confucianism and Buddhism and stuff like that. And we're going to more talk about Confucianism first, and their core ideas is meaning comes from the harmony and good relationships. Let's get kind of restating something we've heard earlier and everything, but respect others, follow moral duties, and contribute to society. Now, this is kind of more of a truth to what is life, and that is kind of what is life, is to kind of follow moral duties, which is more of like law and everything, I feel like, and contributing to society. Now, that's actually like relatively smart. The reason is behind that is because that does give life some type of meaning, is to build up society and kind of build up what has been already previously built up for you. But basically what they kind of believe is a meaningful life comes from kindness and responsibility. Coming from like, being a governor to being a father to being a brother or a sister or whatever. That is kind of like where their meaning of life comes from, is from those types of things. And also from being kind to these people, teaching these people in kind ways, not, being a complete dickhead the moment they fuck up and stuff. But more of like the Buddhism and Buddha and stuff is life is suffering. Meaning comes from the ending of that suffering. But basically their whole entire idea is to kind of like remove desire and ego. And that is really something that causes quite a lot of suffering and quite a lot of just relative, negativity in your life, is your ego. Because if you believe that you're better, or that like you deserve something more than somebody else just because you were a certain way or whatever, that's a really bad thing, and you should relatively get that removed relatively fast. And that's kind of like something that Buddhism does go for, is because that's something that ego can build and stuff. And the desire of, like, for example, lustfulness and like the greed and everything, the want for material things is something that more of a human desire, but it is something that you should be able to try to remove and everything. And also, living with compassion, awareness, and inner peace is another major point of Buddhism, religion, and everything. And that is something that gives them even more meaning of life, is just kind of relatively through just kind of understanding oneself and understanding that they need to be passionate, and that their ego and desires really truly have no meaning to them, but it has just a more of a human one, and that you should conquer those human ones. But now we're going to get into, I don't really know what this is exactly. This is just kind of more of a philosopher, but I just seen like a weird name by it before, so I didn't know whether if it was a religion or if that's the name of the philosophy or not. But it was made by Luo Tzu, which is basically their core idea is flow with life, don't fight it. And flow with the natural way of the universe, which two basically I guess means natural way of the universe, because I had that in parentheses there. Simplicity, humility, and harmony brings meaning. And basically what this kind of just basically means is that you shouldn't try to fight every single thing that comes about you. Obviously, you should stand up for yourself in certain points in time, but you shouldn't have full blowouts just because something didn't go your way. Or you shouldn't have, absolute hate for people just because something didn't go your way or whatever. You should respect everybody in the way that you want to be respected, and you shouldn't challenge everything that comes to you, because some things are just meant to be there just to teach you. And relatively, I think that these people have all really good opinions on like what life is meant to be about and everything. And to be honest, I kind of built my meaning of life based off of kind of all of these just kind of different meanings. And I truly believe the meaning of life is to find what makes you happy. But into finding what makes you happy, you should be kind and nice to others, but to a certain extent, in that it keeps your self-respect in play. And that's just kind of the whole, I think, meaning of life is.